I want to say welcome to the celebration of Al Hall, a World War II veteran and a Korean War veteran also. Thank you, sir. At this time, I will want to welcome the French Consul General Louis de Corral for his presentation.
Dear Signal Third Class Petty Officer Alan Hall, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Louis de Corral. I'm the Consul General of France for the U.S. Southeast, and I must confess how deeply honored I am to bestow the insignia of the Legion of Honor on Mr. Alan Hall, a U.S. World War II veteran who participated in the Normandy invasion, for which we are celebrating the 75th anniversary this summer. This medal is awarded on behalf of the President of the Republic of France, Emmanuel Macron. To begin, I would like to thank all of Mr. Hall's family and friends who are here to show their support and admiration, as well as the Marietta VFW, which has lent us this space to put on the ceremony today. I also wish to recognize Drew Keenan, State Legislative Chairman, representing VFW Department of Georgia, and Don Holtz, Assistant Commissioner, Georgia Department of Veterans Services. The National Order of the Legion of Honor was created by Emperor Napoleon in 1802 to recognize individuals who have served France or the ideals it upholds. The medal is France's most prestigious order, and it is bestowed on French citizens as well as foreign nationals, including veterans such as the Americans who risked their lives during World War II fighting on French soil. Some 75 years ago, Mr. Hall risked his young life for the freedom of France and Europe. France is what it is today, a free and sovereign country, thanks to bravery of such veterans and thanks to America. We are now decades away from World War II, and yet we still pay homage to these veterans, to the legacy of their courage and the fight for freedom in a time of darkness and despicable ideologies that came to power in Europe. This year is special in that it marks the 75th anniversary of the storming of the beaches of Normandy. On D-Day, on June 6, 1944, some 156,000 American, British, and Canadian forces landed at 5 spots along the heavily fortified coast. As I already mentioned, Mr. Hall was a part of the Normandy invasion, landing on June 11th. And Mr. Hall, thank you for that. Today we remember that French-American friendship is bound in blood, and that our two countries owe each other their very existence as free nations. We remember from the U.S. Revolutionary War to the battlefields of World War I and the beaches of Normandy, the United States and France have always stood shoulder to shoulder to defend the values of freedom and democracy. The United States and France remain close allies in addressing international threats and challenges to this day. Mr. Hall, you embody this shared French-American history. You illustrated with your courage and the friendship and shared values that so profoundly bind our two nations. We are gathered here to honor you. In recognition of your heroic actions and extraordinary accomplishments, the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, nominated you to the Legion of Honor with the rank of Knight. Before officially bestowing you with this decoration, I would like to highlight your heroic deeds in France during World War II. Signal Third Class Petty Officer Alan Hall. You began your military service with the U.S. Navy in January of 1944 and landed on the beaches of Normandy half a year later on June 11th as part of the Allied invasion. The date was exactly 75 years ago this past Tuesday. You went on to participate in various combat missions in Western France, helping to liberate cities including Le Havre and Nantes. You would later participate in the Naval Coastal Patrol of the English Channel. During your time in the war, you worked in signals and communications. You have maintained an active role in veterans groups, having served as VFW Post Commander and District Commander, as well as the Disabled American Veterans Commander, and American Legion Sergeant at Arms. In recognition of your service, you were awarded the World War II Victory Medal, the American Campaign Medal, and the European African Eastern Campaign Medal. Signal Third Class Petty Officer Alan Hall, au nom du Président de la République, nous vous remettons les insignes de Chevalier de l'Ordre national de la Légion d'honneur. Dear Mr. Hall, you are a true hero, and you will be our hero forever. We, the French, will never forget that you helped to do what you helped to do to restore our freedom. And today we also remember the ultimate sacrifice of so many of your comrades who rest on French soil. They will remain forever in our hearts. Your example and their example give us inspiration for the future, and your legacy provides a moral compass for generations to come. So, to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause to Mr. Hall.
And thank you very much for allowing us to be here with you today and for participating in this very momentous occasion. As you said, I'm Tina McIntosh, and this is Charles Sanger. We're with Congressman Loudermilk's office. And he wishes he could be here today, but he unfortunately votes have kept him in D.C. So we're going to read a letter real quick from the congressman. Dear Mr. Hall, on behalf of the 11th Congressional District of Georgia, please accept this flag flown over the United States Capitol on June 6, 2019. This flag was flown in honor of your service to our nation during World War II and your participation in the invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944. To impart to your sacrifice and those of your fellow service members, our nation can enjoy the freedom afforded us by God and protected by the U.S. Constitution. Thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this celebration. May God bless you and your family. Barry Loudermilk, Member of Congress.
And I've had the opportunity in my current capacity the last several years, because of the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, to participate in a number of presentations to Vietnam veterans who served during that period of time. So today is a real honor for me to be able to present this certificate of appreciation on behalf of the citizens of the state of Georgia in recognition of Mr. Hall's service during World War II in the United States Navy during the invasion of Normandy, France in June 1944, and his participation in the liberation of France in 1944 to 1945. And the certificate is signed by Mike Roby, Commissioner of Veteran Service for the state of Georgia.
It is truly a privilege for me to be here with you today. I'd like to thank our hosts at VFW Post 2861 and everyone here for your attendance to recognize and honor Mr. Alan Hall, Sir Hall, who served as a signalman 3rd class during World War II. Mr. Hall fought in World War II and aided in the liberation of France, and today we have the pleasure of observing the appointment as a Knight of the National Order of the Legion of Honor by the Consul General of France in Atlanta. The French Legion of Honor is an order of distinction first established by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1802 and is the highest decoration bestowed by France. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the Allied invasion of Normandy. For a moment, I would like to take you back to 1944. In some ways, it was a simpler time. The average cost of a new house was roughly $3,450. The average wage was $2,400 a year. The cost of a gallon of gas was 15 cents, and a loaf of bread only cost 10 cents. If someone wanted to contact a friend or a relative, a smartphone with today's unlimited talk, text, and data simply was not an option. The likely options back then included a letter in the mail, maybe a landline telephone call, or perhaps a telegraph message. People also received their news differently back in 1944. Today, we enjoy 24-hour news coverage on TV, or for some, we prefer to get our information on the internet or via social media. Back then, any person desiring to know what was going on in the world would have to get it via perhaps newsreel clips at the movies, or via print, magazines, newspapers, or on the radio, such as that prayer that the chaplain read aloud this morning, or earlier in the presentation. But also significant in 1944 was the fact that we were engaged in the Second World War, a war which began in 1939 against a formidable enemy. In 1940, Germany invaded France. However, by May 1944, there were 2,876,000 Allied troops that had amassed in southern England. The largest armada in history, made up of more than 4,000 ships, lay in wait, and more than 1,200 planes stood ready. The stage was set for the soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied forces, including Britain, America, Canada, and France, to turn on the offensive and attack German forces on the coast of Normandy, France. On June 6, 1944, nearly 160,000 Allied troops landed along a heavily fortified 50-mile stretch of French coastline in the historic operation known as D-Day. What I'd like to do is read to you the message to the troops from General Eisenhower before Operation Overlord, or D-Day, as we now know it. Soldiers, airmen, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 to 1941. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man-to-man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. Now, Allied casualties were heavy during D-Day, but by the day's end, the Allies had gained a foothold to begin liberation in Europe. On August 25, 1944, Allied forces liberated Paris, the Sea of Light, from the Germans. In all, about 225,000 service members were killed or wounded or went missing in Normandy from June to August 1944, including 134,000 Americans and 91,000 Britons, Canadians, and Poles, as well as 18,000 French civilians. The Germans lost more than 400,000 soldiers in Normandy. The cost is great, but D-Day helped turn the tide for the Allies in Europe, setting events in motion that would ultimately end with Germany's surrender on May 7, 1945, bringing an end to the European conflict in World War II. 75 years later, we remember those service members who fought in the darkest hour for freedom, and we honor their legacy by continuing to carry the torch of liberty. On behalf of the sailors of Nosk Atlanta, myself, and the United States Navy, we would like to thank Mr. Hall for his great service and sacrifice for our country and our allies. It is an extraordinary honor to be here with you and your family today. Thank you, sir.
World War II came along, and I could hardly wait to join up because buddies of mine in high school were the same way. So one day, on my birthday, I hitchhiked down to, I'm from Cincinnati, hitchhiked down to the federal building and got an application for the Navy. I took it home to my mother. My father was, he was gone. And my mom said, "Son, are you crazy? Don't you know there's a war going on over there?" I said, "Yeah, Mom, but I want to go over there too and my buddies do what we can do." She said, "Okay, I'm going to sign this under one condition." I said, "What's that?" She said, "You tell them people when you go down there to that federal building that you're not going overseas." Right, Mom. It's an honor to have France give me this honor. And thinking back 75 years ago and things that I can remember, I'm just happy to be here.
We're happy you're here too.